Well, I'm back at it, and again, happy 4th of July. And tonight, you finally get my list of the top 10 greatest war films that I've ever seen. So, my plan was to get this out Memorial Day, but I just didn't have time to do it, so you are getting it tonight. But I have war movies ranging from Vietnam to Iraq to the Revolutionary War to Civil War to World War I to World War II. So I have a bit of a range here, and I try to pick out the best of the best in my opinion. So don't be alarmed if you see some of the greatest ones on here at a lower ranking, but I'll get into that. But war movies to me are, I don't want to say they're hard to watch, but they're very important to watch. And some of them have a major effect on me because they are forced to make you feel the freedom of the men and women who fight for us. And these stories are true, and it happens every day. But all these movies were made in Hollywood. But just imagine being on the front line every day. It would be extremely hard to deal with. But I wanted to do this video because I felt it would be very important to talk about, because war is not a pretty subject to talk about whatsoever. So let's go ahead and get this video started. And at number 10, I decided to pick 1917. And this is a World War I epic that was released in 2019 and directed by Sam Mendes. And this movie features like two Germans delivering a letter to avoid an attack from the French, I want to say. I'm pretty positive. So this movie was very well shot, and it has a simple premise, but it's lower on this list because I really don't remember it that much. But I definitely need a rewatch of it. And not to mention, it's probably the newest one on this list. But that was 1917. And at number 9 is going to be American Sniper. And this was directed by Clint Eastwood. This released in 2015. So this stars Bradley Cooper, and he plays the role of Chris Kyle, which was a very famous elite sniper in the Navy SEAL. So he's credited with the most sniper kills of any elite sniper. I mean, he's got 130 something kills under his belt. So this movie explores his life and what it's like to be on the front lines. And he's called back home like at least 2 or 3 times, but he's so used to war that he just keeps going back. And his wife and new daughter are just flabbergasted that he just doesn't want to spend time with them anymore. But this story ends in tragedy where a disabled vet just wants help to train, but he shoots Chris Kyle point blank. And I believe Chris Kyle passed away in 2013. They had his funeral on TV, and I think it was in Dallas, I want to say. But this is a very powerful movie. And not to mention, one of the best sniper shots that he's made. I mean, you'd like see it in the editing. I mean, his enemy is at least 3 or 4 miles away, and he made that shot no problem. But this is a really fantastic movie. So that was American Sniper. And at number 8 is a personal nostalgic favorite of mine. That's going to be The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger and Oscar Isaacs. So this movie was released in 2000 and directed by Roland Emmerich, and it takes place during the Revolutionary War. And Mel Gibson plays Benjamin Martin. He's just like this regular farmer, and the British start invading his town in South Carolina, and he's in charge of forming a militia to help with the infantry towards the British. So this movie is the only work of fiction, but it still works as a solid war movie. It can be a little bit romanticized in a few parts, but this movie has quite a bit of tragedy because Oscar Isaacs, which is like the main British baddie, he like literally shoots 2 of Ben Martin's sons point blank in front of him, and that just tore him up. I mean, I cannot imagine like losing your kid to like the enemy. That's just tragic. But there's also like a love story between Heath Ledger and I have no idea who plays his love interest. I'll have to look that up, but that's going to be in here. But in the middle of this movie, the British catches up at like a church where her family is in it and a bunch of other people are in it, and the British just burn the church to the ground. That is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in this movie. But what takes the cake is the death of Heath Ledger. I mean, God. But I love this movie, and it is very rewatchable. But it's the only movie on here that is not based on a true story. But that was The Patriot. And at number 7 is going to be a movie that I haven't watched in quite some time, but I decided to add it on this list. That movie is going to be Glory. And this was made in 1989 and was directed by Edward Zwick, which is the director of The Last Samurai, which is another fantastic movie, but I don't count it as a war film set in the Americas. But anyway, Glory stars the likes of Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, and Morgan Freeman. And this is set in the Civil War. And the main battle in here is the Battle of the Antietam. And Matthew Broderick is in charge of the 54th Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry, which is the first African American infantry in the Civil War. So, what I remember about this movie is that they're all part of the Union, but in the end, they ultimately get overwhelmed and mowed down by the Confederates. But really need to rewatch this movie. I just didn't have time to put it on in these last couple days, but I just decided to put it on this list. But that was Glory at number 7. And at number 6 is going to be a movie I just watched today in preparation of this video. And that movie is We Were Soldiers. And yet again, this stars Mel Gibson, but this time he is in Vietnam on the battlefield for the Valley of Death. So, for some reason, I do remember watching this when I was like 11 or 12 in the theater, but I just needed a refresh, and this movie was released in 2001, and it was directed by Randall Wallace, which I do believe that Randall Wallace worked with Mel Gibson on Braveheart. But anyway, this movie centers around Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore of the Army, and he's in charge of getting his men to fight in the Valley of Death, which is basically Vietnam's answer to Gettysburg. So, a very overwhelming part of the Vietnam War for the Americans. Granted, Vietnam was the only war that we lost. We weren't prepared, and it is history's biggest military blunder. And we lost like nearly millions of people in Vietnam. So it's not a pretty war whatsoever. But this movie just delves into what it's like on the battlefield, of course. And it also adds that layer of life lost every day during this conflict. It was pretty hard to watch, but it's real. And, yeah. But that was We Were Soldiers. And at number 5 is going to be another movie set in Vietnam, Platoon. And this movie is about a renegade colonel on the loose that just snaps and tries to kill every man in his infantry. This was released in '86, and it's directed by Oliver Stone. And Oliver Stone is actually a Vietnam War vet, so he knows everything there is to know about Vietnam. And this also shows the iconic scene where Willem Dafoe gets ravaged by the Vietnamese while the helicopter just flies off. It's one of the most harrowing scenes in war movie history. I mean, it's even on the cover there. But been a minute since I watched this movie. I just remember it being excellent. That was Platoon. Edit number 4 is going to be Lone Survivor. And this was set in the Iraq War, if I want to be frank. But this stars Mark Wahlberg and Taylor Kitsch. And I'm going to see who else. Eric Bana, Ben Foster. Yeah, that's who. Yeah, those are like the main guys. But this is about a group of Navy SEALs trying to capture this Afghani warlord and bring him to justice. But Mark Wahlberg's infantry gets wiped out, making him the lone survivor. This was an excellent movie, and it's one of the best modern war movies, in my opinion. It's just fantastic. So, he's just like held prisoner by the Afghans, and he just tries to fight to survive every day before he bites the dust. So, really good movie that I really want to rewatch sometime soon. But yeah, that was Lone Survivor. And this was directed Peter Berg and released in 2013. So yeah, Peter Berg also worked with Mark Wahlberg on Deepwater Horizon and even Patriot's Day, I want to say. So basically, they collaborated throughout history, modern history, but that was Lone Survivor. Edit number 3 is going to be Black Hawk Down. And this movie is about Navy SEALs landing in Mogadishu, which is the most populous city in Somalia, and they're just fighting to survive the forces of the Somali pirates. I watched this movie a few months ago for the first time, and I really enjoyed it. And it is probably one of the first post 9/11 war movies to come out, because this movie was released in 2001, and it was just a way to cope with 9/11, but after that tragedy, we just weren't ready to see war movies. But this was also based on a true story, and this took place in like the 90s. So it's another modern war movie. Really good movie. I just don't remember much details about it, but I just remember that a helicopter crashes and the Americans are still being overwhelmed. But that was Black Hawk Down. And at number 2, and both of these movies could be number 1 in my opinion, but today my number 2 pick is going to be Saving Private Ryan. Now I know this is considered to be like one of the best war films ever made. I recently put this on for the first time to watch it all the way through a couple nights ago. But, well, I guess it would be my second time because I do remember watching this a few years back. But, this stars Tom Hanks and Tom Sizemore and a few other people that are very recognizable, like Nathan Fillion's in here, Bryan Cranston's in here, Matt Damon's in here, and quite a few other people. But this is essentially a movie about a search and rescue mission of a private named James Ryan. So Tom Hanks and his infantry have to locate him to tell him that his 3 brothers have died in combat. And yeah, it's pretty much this entire movie. But what makes this movie stand out is the opening 20 minutes. They land on the beach on Normandy during D-Day, which was on June 6, 1944. And this whole scene made veterans just have PTSD because of its brutality and realistic fashion. I mean, Steven Spielberg definitely was at his best in this movie. But it is a very long one, and it can be very hard to watch at times. But I found this movie to be extremely, extremely brutal and realistic. So it's not a easy movie to watch. But that was my runner-up, Saving Private Ryan. My number 1 favorite war movie of all time is going to be Hacksaw Ridge. This was released in 2016. Stars the likes of Andrew Garfield, Teresa Palmer, Sam Worthington, and even Vince Vaughn. So this is another World War II epic. And this is about a man by the name of Desmond Doss, who is very religious. He doesn't believe in killing whatsoever, but he wants to enlist in the army to become a combat medic. So this movie is just as realistic as Saving Private Ryan, but it's just got a better story in my opinion, because he goes on the front lines without firing a weapon, and he saved like hundreds of wounded soldiers. Now if that's not courage, I don't know what is. But Desmond Doss is one of the bravest men I've ever heard of. But the real Desmond Doss unfortunately passed away like a few years before this movie came out. And Mel Gibson delivered one of the best war movies I've ever seen. So, to me, this is a perfect movie. And I've seen this movie like at least 5 or 6 times, and I almost bawl near the end because they actually have Desmond Doss talk about his efforts on the front line. So it's very powerful stuff, and this is my favorite war movie of all time. Now I know there's a few more movies that I could have talked about in this video, but if I'm willing to, there might be a part 2 to this video. So you'll probably see the likes of Apocalypse Now. I almost considered putting Full Metal Jacket on this list, but there are so many war movies that I've never seen before that I consider to be on this list. But I just haven't seen them. But right now, those are my top 10 war movies. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and my next video is going to be my Insidious, The Red Door movie review, and or my Mission Impossible movie review. Whatever movie I watch next, you'll see. So stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your 4th, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios. Peace.